Okay, I am presenting Algebra 1 PLC data on our last test. This test was for graphing lines, graphing linear equations. Each of our tests always cover 5 new standards. That will be 15 questions on their test. So for each standard, I have 3 questions, a level 1, a level 2, a level 3. The level 3 questions are the EOC type question. The level 2 questions tell me whether or not the kid has mastered the content. And the level 1 question tells me that they have a basic understanding of the content. So my kids get this before we even start the unit in their test, before they take notes, anything like that, and they keep it in the notes section of their binder. After the first quiz for this test covered these 2 standards. They'll highlight them in the same color and then record their quiz score in the box. So here they would write quiz 2.1 and the score they got, let's say they got a 5 out of 10. And then after the next quiz, they'll do the same thing in a different color. So I tell them that this tells them what they need to study. So if I look at this and know that I got a 10 out of 10 on these things, then I need to really focus here, if I got a 5 out of 10 on these things before my next test. So it's kind of a way for them to catch what they need to do before their next test. And I'll reference back to it a couple days before the test, telling them that they need to look at it. So then after they take this test, we have our test data. Remember that these are level 1, level 2, level 3 questions, so we are hoping as they go through that these are getting, that they're getting more of the level 1 right, and then more of the level 2, and then the least of the level 3. Obviously we want them to get them all right, but these scores should be going down as they go. So 1 through 15 on their 20 question test are always the new content, the level 1, level 2, level 3. 16 through 20 is old content. So this is the old content that they've covered in the previous test. These questions are usually the most missed questions that were on the previous test. So that's not good that they really haven't gone up that much. Believe it or not, the percentages have gone up, but not anywhere near what we would like. So some of these are going to show up again on their next test. So what we do is after we look at this data, we try to figure out why were these scores so low. Is there something wrong with the question? Is it a bad question? Is there a typo? Sometimes that happens, that messes with the kids. For example, one of our questions, when we went back and looked at it, the negative was in front of the fraction and it looked just like a continuation of the fraction. So they couldn't see that it was negative 1/2, or it was just, they thought it was just 1/2. So that messed them up. It wasn't their fault necessarily, it was the way the question looked. So we had to retype that, and hopefully we'll fix that this time around. So after the kids after the test, let me back up. After the test, the kids will go back to this sheet and explain how do they think they did before, like how do they think they did on their test, and then they'll go through here and they'll highlight the ones that they got correct. And through that, they'll find things like all of these are blank, so I'm missing all the level 3 questions, which means I'm not getting to that ACT-like level. Or some of them will find, hey, I got question 8 and 9 right, but I missed number 7. That means I probably just made a silly calculation error. So I need to go back through and figure that out. So this is a really good eye-opening visual tool for what you're missing, why you're missing it, that kind of thing. We don't really worry about these last few questions because it's different content, so it's kind of hard for them to understand. Now, some of them will get, and they'll say, oh, I highlighted most of these right, but I still got a bad score. I'm missing all those old content questions, and that's where we'll have conversations that you're not retaining information. You need to make sure that you don't just use it and forget it, since math builds on itself. So what I have them do after this is we have a Google form where they fill out, you know, what helped me do well on this test or what caused me to do poorly on this test, what can Ms. Thornsberry to do to help me do better, what can I do to improve. So I put a little bit on them and I put a little bit on me. You know, I'll ask them what strategies would help you to do better in the future, and I get some good feedback, and then I get some crazy things like don't make the test so hard, don't put letters in math and stuff like that. But for the most part, I get pretty good feedback, like this activity really helped me this time. And then they'll give you honest feedback about themselves. They'll say, I really need to start doing the study guide. So on the study guide, what we do, our policy on retaking the test is if they do the study guide that they're given, then they are allowed to retake the test. The study guide's not for points, so they don't get a 10 out of 10 for doing it. I told them I personally don't care if they do it. The only thing is I'm not going to let them retake the test if they don't spend the time outside of class to study for that, and that would be doing the study guide. So that's our policy on test retakes, and they can retake it for full credit, but they have to have done the study guide first, and then they'll come back and get remediation and tutoring for those things. The whole reason that I showed you this in a video, my understanding that I was supposed to show you this in a video, is so that we could talk about my flipped classroom. So Algebra 1 has been doing a flipped classroom for 2 years now. This is the second year. The kids seem to really respond to it. Now some of them will complain, but in my opinion those were the ones that were going to complain no matter how you would have taught them. But I really like this Ed Puzzle video site. You just upload your YouTube video and you can see the kids' progress. This will tell me that 94% of my kids watch this video, 86%, 84%. So you can see that their motivation has slipped here in a little bit. But that really kind of gives me a leg to stand on, and it kind of gives me some feedback to give to the parents. Why is my kid so far behind? Well, because they're not watching the videos, so they come into class confused the next day. One thing I want to caution you on, if you think about using a flipped classroom model, is there has to be a benefit for the kids. You can't give them that and homework, in my opinion. In my opinion, the only thing that motivates my kids to do it is that the only homework I'm ever going to give you, unless it is a study guide, which again is not required, is these videos. Also, they're never longer than, I think the longest one I've ever had on here was 9 minutes. But that's rare. Most of them are 4 5-minute long videos. It's only just an introduction to get their feet wet. I think anything beyond that, you start to lose them. So this is just my promise to them. I'm not going to give you homework. This is in replacement of homework. And this is just to kind of get your feet wet and get you an idea of what you're doing. But if you come in the next day and you haven't done it, you're going to be super confused because I'm not going to stand up in the class and lecture. We're going to work on the harder problems that you need to get to, that higher level content when we get to class, when we can dive into it with a buddy or with Miss Thornsberry, or, you know, and you can get that extra help that you need that you wouldn't have had at home on the math content because your parents, you know, have forgotten it since high school. So that's how we look at our videos. When I pull this up, just so you can kind of see, you can see, like, I can look at this and see what my kids have done. So, like, she's watched 0% of her video. This is what I really like about it. I can pull it up and see he watched 50% on his video. So when he comes in and he says, oh, I watched that video. See, I have some notes. I can say, well, it says you stopped halfway through. That's not good enough. You can't get up and leave halfway through a lesson. So we have to have some of those conversations about that in the flipped classroom model. So that is our PLC data and what we're doing in Algebra 1.